What's going on, everybody, and welcome into the GC Live Postgame Show. Joining us today is former Gamecock quarterback Michael Scarnecchia. What's going on, everybody, and welcome into the GC Live Postgame Show. Joining us today is former Gamecock quarterback Michael Scarnecchia. What's going on, everybody, and welcome into the GC. Mike, how we doing there? A little audio issues there. Scar's filling in tonight for Perry Orth. Perry was originally going to be on with us, but there was a last-minute change because Perry takes care of some high school duty things tonight with high school football, so Scar is filling in. We will get to the phone lines in a little bit. We're waiting for intern Joe to hop on there so we can take care of the phone lines, but plenty of comments, and they've been coming in since 7:17, and I'll start pulling some of those up. Just opening remarks, though, Mike, on tonight's performance.
I'm almost speechless. That wasn't one of the most embarrassing performances I've seen in years. Offense was the flattest I've seen. We couldn't do anything. Literally, our 6 points came from special teams. Special teams alone has kept us in this entire season. That and turnovers on defense in certain games. But this was just a bad performance. I really hope the coaches can get in the locker room, get these players motivated for these next 2 weeks, because if they don't, it might be just as embarrassing these next 2 weeks. And that's not going to look good for the program. That's not going to be good for the momentum that Beamer's hoping to carry forward into the next season. I'm sure Gamecock country is not very happy. I know I'm pissed, but there's really not much to say with this performance. It was bad overall on all points of the ball. Maybe the only positive would be special teams, but I can't think of anything.
And I think that's the disappointing part is we've seen this team do good things this year, right? And pulling up some of these comments, I have no idea what the hell half of them are going to say. Not that really anyone really cares tonight. You can tell that I'm in the dark tonight. I am working remotely. That's why we are out in the dark, out in the Cape. Intern Joe is here. We'll have Intern Joe up in a minute. So if you guys want to call in, Intern Joe's working. He's got his media shirt on, being down in Gainesville. So if Intern Joe gives me a thumbs up, I'll let you guys know when it's good to go to call in. So if he gives me a thumbs up, we'll do that. Look, I think the disappointing part about tonight is we've seen this team take steps forward, right? And I know people don't want to hear this right now, but when you look at where they were 2 years ago, they made progress from 2020 to 2021, right? And now you want to see that bar risen even higher this year. And you deserve that, right? You deserve that. Unfortunately, that just hasn't happened consistently enough. We've seen it at times. We've seen it on special teams. I think that goes without saying. That's why South Carolina probably has the best special teams unit in the entire country. But we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it consistently enough. And it's not just offense. We could talk about the offense. The offense deserves to be criticized tonight. No question about it. The defense tonight, they did get better in the second half. But, man, what a disappointing performance in the first half. I understand they're banged up. I understand they're thin in the secondary. But every team in the country is banged up in some shape, way, or form at this point of the season. There's no reason why you lay an egg the way you did tonight defensively. And I think, Scar, more than anything, again, that's not trying to take anything away from the offense. That's not trying to sugarcoat anything about the performance that we saw from the offense. But I think defensively, that will get lost a little bit. I think some fans will look at it and they'll bring it up. But defensively, I was really disappointed with what we saw tonight.
Yeah. Defense, and I think we might have talked about this. We talked about it probably last week again in the Vandy game, post game. If we don't stop the run against Florida, we're not going to have a chance of winning this game. And that was probably because realistically, our offense has not performed the way a lot of Gamecock country has expected it to perform, with Spencer coming in, with a lot of weapons we have on the outside. So, you were hoping your defense was going to go in and be able to stop the run. And I know we're depleted. And I know that, when people don't understand at the college level, when you don't have your starters in, there's usually a significant drop-off in talent between the first string and second string. Now you hope, and people don't know, this is an NFL where you can go from your first string to second string and barely see a drop-off. College, you're going to see a drop-off. And I think we've seen it in the run game. Vandy put up, 100, 200 yards rushing against us. We knew Florida was probably going to do it because that's where their strong suit is. They weren't a great passing team. So, defense wasn't able to do what we were hoping they were going to do to try and give us a chance in this game. Offense just didn't produce anything. I think when you see Spencer getting pressure, we need to adjust. We can't do these long developing plays and hope that Spencer's going to have time back there. When you see your offensive line struggling in a game, help them out. Give Spencer quick throws. You got to find ways to get the ball, whether it's nickel and diamond down the field, but you got to find ways to keep your defense off the field, give them a break, and allow the offense to get some movement and some momentum. There was nothing. And I also, do we have no depth at running back? I understand we have 2 running backs hurt, but Bell is an athlete. Get him in the slot, get him at tight end, find ways to get him the ball that way. He's not a natural running back, and it's no knock on him. He needs to get the ball. We all have established that, but running back's not it. We've got to find ways to get him the ball without. We've got to find running backs too. You're telling me we don't have anybody who can go out there and produce, or is there just no trust? I don't know what it is right now. I will say, as a positive though, instead of just keep going on a mad rant, the defense did step up a little bit in the second half.
Yep.
Florida did not score as many points, and we had 4 plays, 3 turnovers in our side of the field, and defense held them to, I think, 1 score. That's a positive. Defense has made adjustments, and they, even with them being depleted, they can still sometimes perform, whether it's for a half, a full game, a quarter, whatever, but we'll still see it. Offense right now, we just haven't seen it. Not even for a half. It's just not, it's not there, and something, and I know everyone's going to say Satterfield, but, yes, the play calling may not be great, but also our players just not being able to get open. Our O-linemen need to look at each other in the eyes and just look at themselves in the mirror and be like, well, am I not blocking properly? What can I do to get better? There's things that obviously Satterfield's not the answer, but the players need to look themselves in the mirror and figure out how they can help this team.
So the question now is, there's a lot to unpack with tonight's game.
A lot.
And we can do that, and we will. But I also want to look ahead a little bit, because it's tough to just sit here and just talk about what we saw tonight. What we saw tonight speaks for itself. It was crap. It was crap. I don't know what will be said in the Beamer press conference, but I'm sure it will echo that. It was just crap tonight. There's no excuse for what they did tonight. Again, I understand you're banged up on defense. I understand that you were without your 2 top running backs. I understand you were without your starting offensive lineman. But at this point of the season, every team in the country on every level, going down to freaking youth football, for crying out loud, everyone's dealing with some type of injury. So to be this deep into the season and to kind of look at one of the things you mentioned, Mike, about the depth at running back. I did mention, I know we have some of the phone calls coming in right now, just waiting until intern Joe gives us the thumbs up, so I apologize. He's just finishing some of his work right now. He's double dipping down in Florida, but when we're good, we will be able to get to the phone line. So I apologize that I think it's King Street, South Carolina, that called in. We will get to you guys a little bit later on. The running back situation, it is alarming, because it makes me wonder why aren't they ready, right, Mike? We did hear a lot of things from Beamer, and I mentioned this earlier today. I did a Twitter space during my 2-hour drive down to the Cape, and one thing that I talked about was, okay, we've heard from Beamer, we've heard from Satterfield over the last couple of weeks. We keep getting more phone calls coming in about how proud they were of the job that Bell was doing at running back in terms of being able to pick up some of the blocks, right? The angles that you have to be able to be able to do it from a running back standpoint. And obviously he's doing it at tight end. He's doing it at receiver. He's playing multiple positions. And that was something that really resonated with me. So I wasn't shocked that we saw Bell out there tonight at running back. If anything, maybe they just have more confidence with him out there from a blocking standpoint at running back. And I can sit back and be like, okay. But regardless of the outcome, especially with this outcome, take a step back. We understand Bell, his skill set, okay? There's no question about it. That aside, which I know is a big part, but he's able to bring multiple things to the table when he's out at tight end, out at receiver. Why hasn't guys like, Lavassier Carroll? Why haven't guys like, Rashawn Amos, who had a phenomenal spring game? why aren't they in position to be ready for an opportunity like tonight? Juju McDowell, why weren't you able to get him going a little bit more? And these are the questions that if I was in that room tonight, more so probably on Tuesday, because if you ask these questions right after the game, it's difficult, right? Because what's a coach going to say 9 times out of 10? Oh, we have to go back and watch the film. Okay, I understand. Well, on Tuesday or even on Sunday during the teleconference tomorrow, and I typically hop on those, so I'll try to hop on. I'll ask some of these questions. What is it about the development at running back? Is it these guys just aren't there yet in terms of the trust, right? Have they just not earned your trust enough to be able to be put in a position like that? Or do you truly feel like, which I feel like is going to be the answer that we're going to get, that you feel like that gives you the best opportunity to win? If that's the case, we saw the results tonight. And as we unfortunately saw, it just didn't work.
No, it didn't. I'm just trying to gather thoughts right now because you're right. If I'm looking at anything we can do in going forward to try and be positive about this offense, is we've got to give some other guys some opportunities. I saw one comment in here, and it was like, "Do we even have a slant in our playbook?" I was talking with somebody the other day about this. I don't even recall the last time we ran a quick slant or even an RPO that was like a slant with a run option. I
Only
can't.
slant I can think of, Mikey, sorry to cut you off,
No, you're
was
good.
right before the half against Missouri. And that's one of the last successful slant routes. And I say successful, I'm talking throwing it to them, being able to get it. And they picked up 5 yards. And I know we joked at the time. I think I put a little alert emoji in the tweet saying, like, oh, South Carolina threw a slant. But it goes back to even the Georgia game. I know you talked about it ad nauseum after the Georgia game, being able to capitalize. And I feel bad for our friends out in Florence. They keep calling in. We're going to have the phone lines up in a little bit. I promise. We're going to get to you guys. Intern Joe's finishing up. He's double dipping right now down in Gainesville, getting some of the stuff done for Gamecock Central's website. And then he's going to hop on to the postgame show. You talked about it then, just being able to utilize the tight ends more, being able to utilize the middle of the field. Slants, of course, that goes without saying, but just those two things, right? Utilizing tight ends, utilizing the middle of the field. I feel like we've seen it at times, but it just hasn't been consistent. And that was one of the worries I had with this team going into tonight. We saw a lot of good things last week against Vanderbilt. Okay. And I understand there's going to be people saying, well, it's Vandy. Well, Vandy also beat Kentucky tonight. So don't give me that load of crap. What we saw, though, last week was we saw our team, and maybe this is a reach from an offensive standpoint more than anything, that played desperate. And what I mean by that was they knew there was outside noise, and they just did things a little bit differently. To carry on Joyner, Jaheim Bell, both touched the ball on those first 2 drives. And for the first time this season, there were 2 touchdowns the first 2 drives from scrimmage. I bring these things up because tonight, and again, give Florida credit early on. They were able to get you off the field early. But I feel like because South Carolina struggled so much offensively early on in the game, Mike, they were in catch-up mode all night long. Defense, again, they didn't have one of their better nights, especially in the first half. But playing in catch-up mode all night long, it just looked like a team that if they had any type of game plan, it just went quickly out the window.
Yeah, I saw one comment where this was way earlier, and they were talking about, was this worse than the 28-0 against Virginia? And regardless of whether it was worse or better, you just made a great point, is we got behind. And one corollary I saw between that game and this game is these types of offensive coordinators don't keep a calm mind about, let's just play our offense, slowly develop down the field and work down and get a touchdown. I think in their minds, they have to start taking shots and playing these long balls and these long developing plays that are going to get big, 15-yard, 20-yard chunks. And then you get behind even further because our O-line was not having their best game at all. Spencer was under a lot of pressure. So he's not able to just sit back in the pocket and let these plays develop. And I say the same thing over and over. It feels like we're trying to do these long developing plays every single drive. And I don't understand why we can't do 5 to 10 yard plays. I was just watching the Bama Ole Miss game. How many times are they doing short to intermediate throws and they're putting up 20, 30 plus points every single game. And it's like, it's not that hard. You got to find your plays that work. And it's not that hard to just keep it simple and do short plays. You don't have to take shots every single time down the field. You don't have to do long developing plays to get back into the game. You can work your way in. It's a long 4 quarters. You don't have to panic and go into, we have to start driving it and getting big shots to get back in this, because that's usually when you start getting behind even further, and then you keep getting deeper down into having to take shots and getting away from your game plan. And it's frustrating because I know the types of we don't have huge receivers, but we have fast with good hands, and they can get into space. And I don't understand why we don't utilize that. We're not a team that can just sit back and do mass protection and do these long developing plays and just wait for them to happen. I know I'm repeating myself over and over, but it's just frustrating because I know we can do it. It's not hard. You don't need to have the most elite receivers in the nation to do this, or elite offensive line. It's something you can easily do with an average core at receiver and average O line. Just, I don't know. I'm just pissed. I was really mad at that game, and I just see all the time that you can easily change the game plan up by doing short to intermediate throws and getting it out of Spencer's hand. Let me tell everybody this about Spencer. Everyone's saying Spencer sucks. Spencer sucks. The man at Oklahoma was 41-7 with touchdowns to interceptions, I believe. I think that was his stats.
Mm-hmm.
The kid just doesn't go from that to this and suck, and you all say, oh, it's SEC defenses. No. It's not that at all. What's happening is he's not given a good game plan that the coach is utilizing and making it to the benefit of his abilities. He, at Oklahoma, was making quick throws, getting the ball out of his hand, and they were spreading it out. We're not doing that. And he's just, I don't know if he's not able to read right now or see the field well, but he's not. And people aren't getting open for him. And it's just not working. The kid just doesn't go from what he was at Oklahoma to this. But I'm done ranting about that. I just wanted to point that out too.
No, and I think everything you're saying right there is fair, because and I said this even before the game, and I still stand by it. There's things that Rattler does that we have not seen from a South Carolina quarterback in a while. And when you look at where they were last year, musical chairs at QB, right? You just couldn't find someone that either stayed healthy or just it was that fit. And obviously injuries played the big factor more than anything. But then even going back to the year before, right? It was just that struggle of trying to find consistency. I've said this before. And maybe people are going to kill me right now saying this, but I've been saying it all season. I don't feel like it's really the talent. I feel like because again, we've done this exercise before. We've done this exercise, and I'm not saying they have all Americans across the board. I'm not saying they have the talent right now to be able to compete for an SEC East title. Okay, don't get that misconstrued with what I'm saying. But they have the talent, especially after what you've seen last year and what you saw the year prior. They have the talent to be doing better than what they're doing this season, especially on offense. That wide receiver room, it's much deeper than it was a year ago.
Yeah.
The offensive line, which a lot of people gave crap to a year ago, which I understand. And even though it's the majority of them are back this season, they have performed better than they did last year as a whole. I'm not saying it's been phenomenal, but it's been better. Quarterback situation. And this goes back to Rattler. Who are you taking? Are you taking up a banged up Luke Doty? Are you taking a Jason Brown? I mean, and I know there's going to be some people, oh, give me Zeb. No, I don't think it matters right now who you have at quarterback until there is a system in place that will allow you to have success in the way that a lot of us were hoping to see it going into the season. I don't think it matters. You could put freaking Tom Brady out there right now. You could put Steven Garcia, Connor. I don't think it matters right now. I really don't. I mean, maybe I'm going too far with it, Mike, but I think that's the frustrating part is that they have the talent. They have the talent to do better than what we've been seeing, especially in a game like tonight and especially in a game like we saw against Missouri a couple weeks ago.
I agree with you, because a good offensive coordinator with even the worst type of talent across the board when it comes to, receivers, running back, QB, can still somehow still produce offense. It's not like Florida's a world beater. Everyone knows that. They were a 5-4 team going into this game.
Mm-hmm.
We knew they were going to be motivated going into this game because it meant they were going to go to a bowl game after this. So we knew they were going to be a motivated team. We just came off a win where we're motivated. We're hoping we're motivated to get to a better bowl game. But you're right. Satterfield hasn't produced anything productive in this offense. You look back at Vandy and you say, yeah, we had a good offense, but Vandy's defense isn't very good. And I think we say that every single year that we play Vandy, and we probably do these recaps, is that we're saying maybe we're taking the turn for the better. But it's always after Vandy, and then it always turns to not be true. So I was reading this comment that you posted up here, but
I know we got Danny's got a novel going on here. I think we might take a step back for a second for everyone to be able to read this, because I think it's going to be difficult to listen to anything we're saying. He's got to fire his buddy Satterfield. He stunk last season. This season we'll stink again. Look, and let's just get right to it, Mikey. Let's just get right to it, okay? 2 weeks ago, we were talking about the loss against Missouri, okay? And there's a lot of things we saw from the offense even leading up to that point. It wasn't just the Missouri game that made us say, hey, and I compared it to a relationship, right? Sometimes you have in life a relationship that you get into, and at the time, you think it's a good fit. There's a lot of things they bring to the table, but sometimes over a period of time, you realize they're not the best fit for what you need right now. And I felt like that's where South Carolina was 2 weeks ago after losing to Missouri. They did some good things against Vandy, right? And I don't really want to get too deep with this analogy, but I mean, you're in a rough relationship or whatever. I mean, there could be things that kind of arise or pop up that make you think like, okay, but eventually what you see will be what you get. And I feel like tonight was one of those nights. Last week against Vanderbilt, this offense did things that we haven't seen all season, okay? Or at least from an execution standpoint. We could talk about from a schematic standpoint, but strictly speaking from an execution standpoint. Tonight, though, they went back to being who we think a lot of these people think they are. And I say people, I'm talking about the fan base. I'm talking about the people that log on to the GCI Postgame Show, GamecockCentral.com, on the Insider Forum. It felt like they went right back to that. And I think that's the frustrating part. So I say all that, Mike, because we mentioned this last week. If they had lost to Vanderbilt, and let's say that it was in a manner very similar to tonight, I felt like it would be very difficult to go back into that locker room and say, all right, this is our OC for the rest of the way. The regular season, that is. After tonight's performance, there's going to be a lot more people saying, hey, told you. And it's only going to get more challenging over these next 2 weeks. You got Tennessee. You have Clemson, especially a Clemson defense that is very good. Very good. I know they lost to Notre Dame last week, even though I've been saying Notre Dame's not as bad as I think some people think they are. I think they were going through a growing period in the first couple weeks of the season with the new head coach. But I say all that because, I mean, these next 2 weeks are not going to be easy. And if you're not able to keep up offensively against a Tennessee team who's capable of putting up 40, 50, 60 points even, what makes you feel good about the last 2 games? And I think that's the scary part, that you're looking at a South Carolina team who a couple weeks ago were 5-2. And now it looks like there's a possibility that they could finish the regular season at 6-6. I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer. I'm just trying to be realistic. I'm trying to be realistic. Tennessee and Clemson over the next 2 weeks, you're not playing TikTok Tech. You're playing 2 of the better teams in the country. And even though Clemson might not be world beaters like they have been in the past couple of years, they're still a very good team.
Yeah. And I, like you just said, what's a positive that we can look at for these next 2 weeks? I think the only positive Gamecock Nation could look at, and it's likely not going to be the case, but it's potentially going to happen. I have no idea what the coaches are going to make adjustments or changes to, but getting different players in there. Let someone call new plays. I don't know if Satterfield's been calling the plays, but I'm assuming he has. It kind of looks like he is, to be honest, based on what his previous game calling has been like. It's probably him. And And I was actually on the phone with Perry earlier today watching the game, and we were like, man, he has the same 3 plays against certain coverages that he runs, and Perry and I call it out almost every time. If we're calling it out from our couches in our
And
houses.
Scar, can you simplify that? What you mean by that?
So for instance, Perry and I were talking about this. There's a play where they go trips and they put one receiver to this, and it's a man beater. They run all 3 guys forward, release the lineman, and have the receiver come on a shallow across the field to be man. I'm sure all of Gamecock Nation has seen this play every single game, and you see it over and over again. I don't even know the playbook, and I can call out a good amount of plays that are going to happen in the game. It's obvious. The man has no creativity to his game. And it's not like you need so much creativity every single play. But when his go-to plays for certain coverages are constantly being shown up every single game, then it's an issue. But that's besides the point. What I was trying to say is with the positives is maybe you do get to carry on in there and run a wildcat offense for one game, or maybe you get Doty in there and maybe yes he is banged up, but you try something. At this point, what do you have to lose? I think most people aren't expecting wins these next 2 games, so why not try and make it competitive? Because what we're doing right now is not making it a competitive game at all. We're not even. This game was embarrassing. We didn't have a chance to even be in it at all in the game. I was hoping that there's going to be a couple turns where we're like, okay, this is now a game. We're going to be back in it. There wasn't. And if you want that to happen against Tennessee or Clemson, keep doing what you're going to do. Call the same offense, play the same players, and probably get the same results. But why not change it up? Because at this point, you have nothing to lose. We haven't done anything productive in offense. Our defense is depleted, and I say you probably got to keep sticking with what you're doing on defense. Special teams has been the highlight for most games, but on offense, change it up. Let's see what other players can do. I think Gamecock Nation, while it may not produce better results, they're wanting to see it.
Mm-hmm. You're just looking at some of the stats. If you're just joining us tonight, obviously you know the score. South Carolina lost tonight against Florida, 38-6. To say it was a disappointing game would be an understatement, especially considering the fact that you were able to do some good things last week offensively. And I know there's probably a lot of people saying here, well, you know, I was expecting that they were going to lay an egg. Okay. But at least it should have made you feel like a little bit better. I'm not saying like bet the house on it. But at least you were able to do something to say, okay, they're capable of doing some good things. That just didn't show tonight. It didn't show tonight. I do want to bring this up, and I apologize. I mean, we've been getting phone calls left and right. Intern Joe's finishing up, and then we will be able to go to the phone lines. Appreciate the patience. I know there's some of you that don't have patience and you want to get right on, and I get it. I totally understand it, and we will get to you guys shortly. But while we wait for Intern Joe for a second, let's just get some ad reads out of the way. GC Live is brought to you by Liberty Tax. You'll be able to overcome your taxiety. Give them a call. They'll be able to help you out. That number is 803-462-5576. Liberty Tax, helping you with tax season, which Intern Joe needs to be getting ready for. He's growing up. He's a big boy. Also, today's program is brought to you by our good friend Clint Hammond over at the Mortgage Network. It is a crazy time right now to buy a home. Our good friend Perry Orth, he used Clint, and Clint helped him out a lot. He'll be able to get you all situated. Give him a call at 803-576-4450. Once again, that is our buddy Clint Hammond over at the Mortgage Network. So now that the ad reads are out of the way, Intern Joe will join us shortly, and then we will be able to get going. And Jason's asking, Mike, what are you drinking? I'm drinking a little wine here tonight. I really don't want to get too off topic, especially on the night of a loss, but I got dragged to a wedding. One of my good buddies, and I told him, I said, I'm not going unless there's Wi-Fi. I said, we got to do the post-game show, and I got to be able to watch the game. And I was the guy on the phone all night watching the game. So I was right there with you guys.
Before we take a call, I don't know if I do right now, but there's the most recent comment right here. The program is coming from a 2-win season and the worst. That's a good point. I think a lot of, yes, right now we're in a bad spot with Gamecock Nation, but we have to realize 2 seasons, you're not going to just flip a program around. 3 seasons, you may not even flip a program. It's going to take potentially 3, 4, 5 seasons to see our team get back to where they want. And I know a lot of fans are hoping we bring in that coach that's going to bring it back within 1-2 seasons like Tennessee did and some other schools have done. But that's just not a realistic expectation. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes that happens, but it's not a realistic expectation. Beamer hopefully is going to get he's going to bring in the right coaches. And whether that's Satterfield or not, I think Gamecock Nation knows the answer. But we're going to have to make some changes because if Beamer wants a long career here and he wants to be the coach that brings us back to glory years, it's not going to be 2 seasons. It may not be 3, but while Gamecock Nation definitely is no stranger to hardship and losing seasons, I know we don't want to continually experience that, but I think we have to still give Beamer a little bit of time and take it with a grain of salt that this is his not take it with a grain of salt, but understand this is his second season.
Mike, what would you tell people right now? Because and I'm not trying to be negative by looking ahead, but again, Tennessee, Clemson, it's a tough point right now. It's a rough patch. And I understand we could talk about the offensive coordinator, and we could do that next. But like I mentioned before, the defense just didn't show up tonight. And I think that was really disappointing. It was really disappointing. One thing that I mentioned all week long on Gamecock Central, we did on our Quick Slant story, which we post every Thursday on GC, was how important it was going to be to get off the field on third downs, be able to slow a guy down like Anthony Richardson in particular with his legs. And that first drive, 14-play drive, 3 for 3 on third downs. 3 for 3. I felt like at that point, and I just felt like at that point, Mike, it was kind of like the writing was on the wall that South Carolina was going to have a long night. Because at that point, after that, South Carolina's offense got on the field, quick 3 and out, and then what happens? Florida goes right down the field, now it's 14-0, right? So being able to help yourself out is something that I talked about a lot this week. If you're the defense, you can't control what's going on from an offensive standpoint. You cannot control it. And it is a shame that they're not able to capitalize and utilize the weapons that they do have, because they do have a lot of weapons, okay? People that want to sit here and be like, oh, they don't have the weapons. No, they do have the weapons, all right? Stop that. They have the weapons. It's just not being utilized, and there's no other way to sugarcoat it. They have the freaking weapons because we've seen it. We've seen it this year. We've seen it at times last year, right? I don't want to sit here on a post-game show doing something that we would do on a Tuesday, playing this game of, okay, let's go down the list at wide receiver and the talent that they have compared to last year or compared to 2 years ago. They have the freaking talent. They do. And I understand there'll be national recruiting people out there. Have fun. I can look at a couple stars too. I've been on the business. I've been inside the business. I've been outside of the business with that. I got to be careful with what I'm saying because I work on a recruiting site. But there's some people that they just look at stars. They don't know what the frick they're talking about. Okay? Sorry. We got some talented ones over at On3, though. But I bring all that up because there's some people on the outside that can be like, oh, they don't have the talent. They got the friggin' talent. They do. They do. What we also have intern Joe. So I'm going to post that number right now, and we're going to be able to get to the phone lines because you guys have been very patient, and I apologize that that a bunch of you, I mean, goodness, I can't tell you how many people have called because I get a notification every time you guys call. Here's the number. I'm going to post this. I'm trying to get to every comment, too. We have a bunch of comments tonight, Mikey.
Yeah, there's a couple that are pointing out other schools.
But real quickly, here's the number if you guys want to call into the program, 803-567-3796. Once again, that number is 803-567. And we have one call, I think, right now of intern Joe. Scrub that call. Make sure it's appropriate. Make sure that we're all good with that. And, look, we got a couple phone calls coming in. Holy cow. I'll kind of just sit back for a minute, Mike. Not ask you a question quite yet as we wait to see intern Joe give us the thumbs up. Make sure we're good with this phone call. One thing that we will get into in a little bit, because I keep seeing it over and over, is about the offensive coordinator. A lot of people want to talk about that. We have Alex. We have our good friend Alex from Brazil. Alex, how you doing tonight, bud?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Thanks for taking the call. Yeah, I actually wanted to talk about the whole thing about the OC. He's not going anywhere this the end of the season. They haven't renewed his contract, or at least he was up for renewal at the end of the year. They can't justify it being renewed. I mean, I think the writing's on the wall with him. I think he's gone. But to think that Beamer's just going to blow him up publicly, how are you going to get another offensive coordinator to come if you just fire guys in the middle of the season or embarrass them in front of the media? Stop beating the dead horse. We all know it's bad. We're going to move on. But, Beamer's a professional. Let him do his job.
I appreciate it, Alex, and as always, appreciate you calling in from Brazil. I think, Mike, look, I think there's going to be a lot of people on here tonight. We're seeing it, and I want to get into it, hopefully before another call. There's going to be a lot of people asking about what South Carolina should do right now with the offensive coordinator, or they're going to say, hey, they got to fire Satterfield right now. I know we talked about this 2 weeks ago, and even though they had that performance against Vandy, what's just your thoughts right now on the OC situation? At this point of the season, you have 2 regular season games left. Do you feel like you just kind of ride the ship, regardless of the opponents that you have these next 2 weeks?
I think you got to give another offensive mind in that program a chance. While the plays are all going to be the same because it's one playbook that Satterfield and probably the other coaches compiled and made, give another coach an opportunity. I mean, it's not working. We're not producing anything on offense. And, we at the end of the season, we probably need to do, like he was saying, we don't need to jump the gun and make it seem like an unattractive. But I think a lot of Gamecock Nation is wanting to see, like, will Beamer recognize the main issue with what our program is right now, and that's our offense? And will he be able to make a change? Will he have the CEO mentality of an organization to make us, it's not an easy change. Your friend, a person that you brought over, but Gamecock Nation wants to see, will he be the CEO that Gamecock Nation or Gamecock football needs to bring in the right people for the job to make us become the team that everybody expects us to be, which is competing for the SEC, competing for the college football playoff. And right now with Satterfield, that's not going to be the case. So I think for these next two games, give it, maybe give Kitchens, give another coordinator or position coach a chance to call those plays. I know Spurrier did it in the past. If some coach just wasn't being able to see the field well, or his play calls weren't working, they brought in another coordinator. They changed up. Spurrier would call it. Spurrier would say, hey, I'm taking over, or this person's taking over. I'm not seeing the field well. Sometimes you need to do it. If you're not seeing the field well, give it to somebody else. Satterfield's obviously not answering or being the answer right now for us.
Well, we have Chris on the phone right now. Chris, how you doing tonight? You're on the GC Live Postgame Show.
Chris, you got us.
Chris, I don't know what's going on with your phone. We appreciate you calling. If you can figure that out, call back in with us. But no, to kind of pick up what you were just saying there, Mike, I think that the challenging part of it is where they are in the season, just how deep. I don't know. Look, and I don't know if this is exactly what you're talking about, but I think you do have to give someone else an opportunity to kind of just call the plays out here. I really do. I really do. That's not to say you're going to fire Satterfield right now. I mean, what's the point? What's the point? You still have 2 games left in the regular season. If you want to make a move, and I do feel like that's where it's trending. I feel like that's where it's trending. And let's just sit here, okay? Let's just sit here and let's all play a little game. I know it's the last thing people want to friggin' do is play a game right now. Let's all sit here and play a game. You're the head coach. You're the CEO. You have 2 regular season games left. In a lot of cases, if you move on from an offensive coordinator or any type of coach, it's going to take place after the end of the regular season, right? Between that, the last game of the regular season to the bowl game, okay? If you're the head coach, if you are Shane Beamer right now, does it make sense to move on from Satterfield completely, knowing that you still have to pay his contract? Or do you feel like, hey, look, you know what? I'm going to do him a solid. I'm not going to fire him. We'll kind of let things just kind of play out, right? And we'll have someone else call the plays. And I talk about the solid part. That's something else added in. Coaches sometimes do that. And it's not just higher up. I mean, this trickles all the way down to freaking Division III. that some coaches be like, hey, look, I'm not going to fire you, but just be prepared that we're going to move on from you. I don't know if that's going on right now at South Carolina, but I feel like that's where we're kind of at. I mean, let's just call a spade here. I think that's where we're at right now. And whether it's Freddie Kitchens, whoever the hell it is for these final 2 games, the feel just needs to be different. And it's whoever it is, right? I mean, shoot, we can use Freddie for an example. Is it going to be a tough challenge going up against Tennessee and Clemson? No question about it. Absolutely. Even though Tennessee statistically is not one of the better pass defenses. But like you said earlier, Mike, to just take the words right out of your mouth, what do you have to lose? What do you have to – you're bowl eligible right now, okay? That's not saying that that's the ceiling. That's not saying that should be the expectation is to get 6 wins. But you got to be honest with yourself. And if you're one of these fans in here tonight saying, all right, this team sucks, this team's trash, this is that, if I say these things, you can't flip it and be like, oh, you're just bashing us. No, you're just saying the same freaking thing. You're saying the same thing. You can't sit here and say the team sucks, the team's awful, the team's garbage. And then when I say, you know what do you got to lose against Tennessee and Clemson? Because no one's expecting you to freaking win those games, okay? You got to have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. So, again, I don't think this team sucks as bad as some people think they do. I think the problem is their flaws just stand out more than anything. And I'm trying to be really careful with how I describe this. We'll try to physical appearance is the easiest way to do it, but we'll stay away from that, Mike. We don't want to get canceled tonight on this beautiful Saturday night here at the Cape. Let's look at a basketball player, right? Johnny sucks dribbling with his left hand, okay? He's a really good basketball player with his right. But when he goes left, it is so bad, everyone in the stadium knows it. To a point that your grandmother, who doesn't even know basketball, she's looking at him like, wow, this kid blows, okay? That's where the offense is right now. It's just their flaws are so obvious that it's really hard to look at it and say anything positive. And I think that's the most frustrating part about it more than anything. We have Dale on the line. Dale, you're on the GC Live Postgame Show.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Here's my issue, and I kind of take a little bit of issue with what Scarnecchia said. We need a couple of years to get the program under control, especially with the transfer portal that we have now. We have such a great class coming in, and other schools can sit here and get new coaching staff and turn around and have a great season. So why is it that it's an excuse for South Carolina, which I feel like we use is always got to rebuild, when, like you said, we've got the talent there. There's no reason for this to be rebuilt. I just don't think that, I hate to say it because we've got to beat a death with Satterfield, but I don't think he's utilizing our players like he should. I mean, I think our special teams and defense have scored just as much, if not more, touchdowns than our offense has.
And I think it's a fair point that you brought up is just not utilized. And I know that's something that we talked about. And Dale, I appreciate you calling into the program. I do think, Mike, that we're in uncharted waters with the transfer portal. And, I've had conversations with other coaches in other sports too, across the country, not just South Carolina, and how they can feel the pressure cranked up a little bit, right? It's not when Frank Beamer got to Virginia Tech back in the day, he had a couple years to turn that thing around. I feel like things are going to be cranked up even more with the portal. So the demand of being successful, being able to build a contender quicker or be able to fix things, it's going to be there. And while I sit here and can say, okay, it's a tough conference, everyone's going through it, at some point, even though South Carolina historically has not been able to break through, that's why you're paying whoever the coach is, and obviously Shane Beamer at this point, to be able to find a way to break through. So I don't know what they necessarily need to do this offseason. I think a lot of people will say, okay, it starts with the offensive coordinator. I understand that. But, and I can't remember exactly where the question was a little bit earlier. Trying to see if I can find it here. But basically it said, do you feel like Beamer's on the hot seat? I don't think Beamer's on the hot seat right now. I don't. It's year 2. They're doing things. I understand it's real easy to compare it to the former coach, and we're seeing that in basketball with Lamont Paris. I get that. But at some point, it's not just about comparing it. It's just about doing things that you have to be able to do in the present moment to be able to take it to that next level. And for South Carolina right now, the SEC East is getting better. There's no question about it. And that's not saying the SEC East wasn't good a couple of years ago, but the SEC East is getting better. I know Kentucky's kind of had a wonky year, ranked and lose tonight against Vanderbilt. The conference is getting better. And if you don't find ways to put yourself in a situation to be able to have success quickly, it's really going to put yourself behind the eight ball. And Scar, I'm sorry not to get to your comments right away because I think we have another caller. Chris, what's going on, bud?
Chris,
Yeah, I'm trying to get my situation straight. I'm actually coming back from Florida. Very disappointing in the today. You actually had people that was in the stands of the game field that compared to what we were doing. For the Florida fans in front of my wife, and they could actually the play. So I honestly think that we got to. There's no question. I don't. Rattler has been with us for his life this whole year. Satterfield is not prepared that young man to come into this offense. And my last question is for you, Mike Scarnecchia. What would you tell Rattler? Because you're going to have all these people that's saying that, oh, well, you a bust, or you shouldn't have came here, or everything. I mean, what can we do to help this young man? And I appreciate the call.
I appreciate it, Chris. And I was ready to drop it because I know the service wasn't that great, but Chris got a good question in at the end. And Chris, you brought up a lot of good things there, and I'm glad we were able to get you. We appreciate you calling in. But, I mean, Mike, look, I want to piggyback off that question after you answer it, but I think it's a fair one, you know? I mean, you understand what it's like to be in the spotlight of playing at an SEC school. And for South Carolina, especially for Spencer Rattler, obviously he didn't envision coming here and having the type of season he's had personally. And I'm sure as a team, even though that there's been some bright spots, I'm sure he would have liked, you know, brighter moments. What would you tell Rattler?
You know, it's tough, but I think the one thing is he needs to be a leader right now in that team because I'm sure there's a lot of people in that locker room who are down. And there's nothing that gets a team behind their QB than a guy who goes in there, not being a rah guy and, you know, we got to go fight these, you know, but a guy who's like, you know what, this is on me. I need to step up. I need to get in there and be in the film room. I need to do better in practice. There's things that I can do better to become a better leader and show you guys this is how we all need to be. And that's how it needs to be. I think from a QB perspective, the team looks at you. The team gets energy off of you. And it's how it always is. When you have a good QB, the team always feeds off of it. When the QB's playing well, the team feeds off it. So as him, he needs to go in the locker room. And this is I'm not even talking about talent. Nothing about talent at this point. It's about just being a leader. Go in that locker room, take ownership for what you did, hit the film room, learn as much as you can about this Tennessee defense. And you know what? You're going to be stuck with whoever calls the plays. It doesn't matter. You still need to go out there and perform. And so he needs to get the team ready to go out there and look competitive against these next two teams, Clemson and Tennessee. You know, we can't go out there and be flat and be down on ourselves and say, well, we made a bowl game and, you know, that's the joy of our season. We go out there, but we can look competitive. We can potentially win these games. Crazier things have happened. I don't even want to say that it's impossible because crazier things have happened. While they do have good offenses at Tennessee, good offense at Tennessee, not at Clemson, and a good defense at Clemson, you never know. You go out there, get some turnovers, get the Gamecock Nation behind you in a Tennessee game, but you need to have a QB who's got his team ready going into these next two games. If he doesn't lead this team this next week, I don't think we're going to look very competitive these next 2 weeks, to be honest. That's my advice. I would just say that.
Got intern Joe here. Intern Joe, do you say we have another phone call right now?
Yeah, we got Rush on the line. Rush, go ahead.
Rush, how we doing?
Yeah, so I just got to make a statement here. Me and a couple buddies run down 95, heading back from Janesville, and just terrible performance. I mean, just embarrassing. And we just want to know, Scarnecchia, when's the damn change going to be made at offense coordinator? I mean, we've seen enough at offense. Make a change up there. Make a
Rush.
Around. I mean, good God. We got to ask for as Gamecock fans. We're riding down here 6 hours from home to watch a 38-6 loss. A beatdown. I mean, good. We didn't even have a pulse on offense. Not one pulse on offense. That's all I gotta say. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Rush. And I think, look, I mean,
That's
that's
a long
the
drive back.
That's the frustration. And I'll say this, and I've brought this up over the last couple of weeks. The beauty with my opportunity right now of covering pro sports in college, it's not saying that people don't care about pro sports. That phone call right there sums up what a majority of you Gamecock fans are feeling right now. This is your life. This is your life. Gamecock football, 12 Saturdays in the fall. And this is what you guys look forward to year round. So for the people that have drove down the Kirk Hollandsworths of the world, God bless him. Going to every game, home, away, bowl game, every game since 92. The Chris Fulmers, who have gone to over 400 straight games. They might not come out and publicly say it, but what Rush just said, that's the feeling that a lot of Gamecock fans have tonight. We have another phone call right now. Terrence, you're on the GC Live Postgame Show.
Hey, Mike.
How we doing?
Hey, doing good, man. Doing good. First-time caller, and I think you do a great job, and I think you're a Gamecock at heart, so God bless you for that over the years. But anyway, I mean, it's pretty dry and cut when you look at it. I mean, secondary is struggling. You know, no depth. The linebacker speed is just, I mean, non-existent. And then we've got two of the better tight ends in the country, and you would never know it. So it's just a mixture of so many things. But I think when you look at it, I mean, if you let the guy go tonight, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to get blown out again versus Tennessee and Clemson. I think the better thing that would happen is you keep your guys on offense that are frustrated right now, and then your current recruits that you've got, or maybe some possible other guys, they step in or recruit, commit or decommit. But, I mean, you let go of Marcus Satterfield tonight, and there's no negativity from it. What's your takes on that? And I'll hang up.
Well, Terrence, I appreciate that. I mean, I think it's easy just to say, all right, cut bait with Satterfield tonight. I don't think it's as easy as that. And I know some fans will be like, just do it. Okay, I get that. But just trying to put myself in the mind of Beamer right now, which obviously I'm not going to fully grasp, never having been a head coach. But I feel like a lot of coaches, not just Beamer, at this point of the year, I think he's going to do him a solid. Trying to help his buddy out by not firing him and just finishing out the regular season and saying, hey, just be ready. Be ready to go get another job. I know a lot of people won't necessarily agree with that. But, again, if you do that, this is where maybe Beamer and I would have different opinions. And this is kind of going back off of what Mike was saying earlier. If you do that, why not give Freddie an opportunity? Why not give one of these other coaches an opportunity? Because the skeleton of the offense is going to stay the same. You're not going to be able to change things up drastically. You're just not. You're too late into the season. But one thing that we've been talking about for weeks ad nauseum with this team has been the flow, the feel of the game. Marcus Lattimore mentioned a couple weeks ago, the feel as a play caller. And if they feel like they can do a better job with that, maybe they will. Mike, I'll get your thoughts on that in a second. Brian's on the phone with us. Brian, you're on the GC Live Postgame Show.
Hey, guys. I appreciate you taking my call. I think it goes a little bit further than Satterfield. There's no question everybody's upset with Satterfield and Rattler and play and all that stuff. But it's the offensive line.
And I'll get to play call in a second. But that offensive line is just putrid. If you look at our offensive coach, Greg Atkins, you look at his bio. Look at that bio and go all the way through it from when he started coaching. He is not good enough to stay at any location more than 2 years on a time. That's his average stint at different places. And I think, don't quote me on the number of places he's been, but it was something like 14 different places over a 30-something year career. If you're good, people going to hang on to you. But and then yes, go on past that to the play calling and how rough Satterfield is with the calling. I mean, the first play of the game is up the middle. Good gracious. And then we've got the quarterback that, look, y'all, there's a reason he got benched in Oklahoma. Rattler is simply not that good. So I'm going to just leave it at that before I work myself up and say something I shouldn't. I'm going to hop off the air and listen to your comments. Thanks, guys, for what you do.
Well, I appreciate that. And I don't know this intern Joe. I'm going to keep you on.
Brian, sorry. Thanks for calling in.
Intern Joe, by any chance, do you know if Greg Atkins was on the sideline tonight by any chance?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, so I bring that up. Because Greg Atkins has been out the last couple of weeks. All right. And I'm not trying to be a wise ass here by, Brian, by saying the offensive line, but I mean, if Greg Atkins is on the sideline, can we blame Greg Atkins over the last couple of weeks? He hasn't been there for health issues. That's not to say that they can't be better. I do feel like Greg Atkins, before everything happened, I felt like he was doing a better job with this whole offensive line. I don't feel comfortable sitting here saying I agree 100% just because if Greg hasn't been in the build, I mean, he's been in the build in the last couple of weeks, I believe the last 2 weeks. But I don't know if he's calling games yet. I don't know if he's back on the sideline working with the O-line. So I just bring that up. One thing I do want to bring up, though, Mike, and if you want to have a thought on what Brian said, we'll get to that. I'm getting back to some of the comments from earlier, and I apologize. Bird, I know you've been very loyal over the course of the season, so I appreciate you. So even though we only beat one team with a winning record and lose to teams with losing records, we have more talent. I've been one of these people, I think over the last couple of years, I've kind of shifted my thought on this in terms of saying all right, if they're not winning, it can't be the talent can't be there. Again, when you go down the list from an offensive standpoint, based on what we saw last year, I think that's the easiest way to do it. It's hard to argue that the offense, from a talent standpoint, isn't better than they were last year. Now, defensively, they lost some guys. Special teams, they've been phenomenal. Even though you lost the all-time leading scorer in Parker White, they've been phenomenal. Mitch Jeter has done a phenomenal job. Hey, Kroger, you can't speak highly enough about what he's been doing. And it's not obviously just in punting. So from a talent standpoint, and Mike, I don't know if you necessarily agree with me, and that's all right. We can agree to disagree. I just feel like talent just isn't the issue with South Carolina. I think it's more so utilizing the talent, capitalizing on the talent you have. I think back to a quote. I don't know if I said it with you, Mike, before, but I think back to a quote my freaking high school coach said. I can go grab him. He's right down there, 100 yards from me. Telling the team, you guys have the tools, but you don't have the toolbox. And I feel like that's where South Carolina is right now. They have the tools, but they don't have the toolbox. And I want to get to you, but of course, we have another call. So we're going to get to Caleb. Caleb, what's going on? Thank you for calling in.
I'm good, man. Today was a tough day. It was just hard on both sides of the ball. But to the fans saying that Beamer should fire Sat at this moment, I don't think that's going to happen. We'll have to see till the season is over. The bright spot of the season has been special teams. If it wasn't for them, we probably wouldn't have 6 rings right now to be bowl eligible. But it's going to take time. We need to build depth for defensive side. We got to keep using that transfer portal to keep recruiting. It's going to take time. That's all. It's a process, and we're lucky to be 6-4.
Positivity.
Well, I appreciate that, Caleb. Look at that. We can have some positivity here tonight. Mike, I know I was talking about the talent before. Just your thoughts on that, and then if anything you want to just piggyback off of what Caleb had to say. And I'm going to try to do my best of catching up with these comments. We're about for 40 minutes behind with comments, and good Lord, talk about the amount of messages that have been coming. We'll wrap things up in a little bit. I know we just hit that hour mark, so we'll wrap things up shortly, but your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah. So, that the caller 2 calls ago, and then what you were just saying about letting Satterfield go, it's just a tough choice because maybe you do fire Satterfield right now, and it creates a new energy in our locker room, and it shows recruits that like, okay, good, change is going to come to Carolina. But it also shows potentially to some recruits like, hey, Satterfield's the guy that recruited me. Like, I don't know if I want to come now. Let's see what happens with the offensive coordinator situation. They may bring in somebody I don't want to be a part of, or a new offense that I don't want to be. So there's so many, checks and balances that have to be factored into whether you're going to fire somebody midseason. And while it may be a good decision, you may just want to wait until the end of the season and give a new play caller somebody else. And there's so much to weigh in all of this. It comes down to recruits, the locker room, your own coaching staff respecting you. Like, there's a lot to factor in. Also, your university. Mind you, we're bound by contracts and how much we can pay out, and what offensive coordinators are in the nation willing. Are they going to do negotiations right now with other offensive coordinators or head coaches to come here? And then now going back to your comment about talent, we do have a lot of talent. I just don't know how much these guys understand schemes. I know when I was playing, there were sometimes the guys would play very well, and it's not like we had crazy talent every single season. But the years, even when we didn't have talent, guys understood schemes because of good coaching. Good coaching can make average to even maybe a little bit below average players. And I'm not even calling our players average. I'm just saying good coaching can make average players appear like very good players. And so I don't know how much of these – I don't know how skilled these coaches are. I can't speak on that. But from what I'm seeing on the field, it's not looking like these players for the Gamecocks truly understand schemes and just know everything they're doing out in the field. Otherwise, if they did, I think we would see more positivity on offense.
Will, you're on the GC Live postgame show.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, what value have you ever seen from running into the pile? Like, every football coach wants to do it, so I was like, we need 1 yard. Let's run a play where the max best thing that could happen is 3 yards. And it's like, meanwhile, South Carolina does it on 1st and 10 with a backup tight end who refuses to block. So we're just like, yeah, we're going to run into the pile.
All right. Well, Mike, you have any thoughts on what Will had to say?
I mean, offensive point, if you're going to just do those types of inside zone where you're running it, through the A gap, which is right next to the center, throw in an RPO, throw in a QB option. I mean, how many times have we seen Spencer pull the ball and run it? Not a lot. And I know these D linemen they're squeezing down to take the run away. So add in some stuff where the DBs have to be on their toes, where the the edge D linemen have to be ready for a QB pull. Like, throw in some mixture. Like, I'm not saying inside zone. Every team in the entire nation runs inside zone. It is not a bad play call. Never. I don't want to hear fans talk. At certain times, it can be a bad play call, but inside zone is not a bad play call. What's bad is if your team's struggling with it and you don't give them adjustments on where you throw an RPO, like a slant behind. So you do a QB read, and if that nickel bites down, you throw the slant. It's simple stuff that can help our offense and run game.
TikTok tech. That a boy, Brandon. We have another phone call. We're going to wrap things up in a little bit, but Derek is on the line. Derek, how we doing tonight?
Good. And yourself, sir?
Hanging in there. I think we're all doing the same here, trying to have a couple drinks and forgetting about the performance that we saw tonight.
Well, it may be a moot point or discussion. There was one play towards the end of the game, and I can't remember exactly when it was. I was, in all honesty, watching it with my 2-year-old and 4-year-old, so I can't promise that all of my attention was on the television. But there was a play, I believe it was a handoff or a pitch maybe to Juju, and I swear he almost looked like he closed his eyes and ran into the back of his blocker. And while I'm as frustrated and upset, and I agree with
most of the fans on here about time to do something different with the OC, and I think it's well past that time. I'm just at some point in time, some of this does fall on your ability when you get the ball in your hand to make a play, right?
Mm-hmm. No, I hear you, and I appreciate you calling into the show. I think, and I'm trying to remember that play, the specific play, Mike. I think the tough thing is it's like, in a situation like that, I think you're just trying to find ways to just make a play. I don't think it even matters who the player is. I don't know if that play rings a bell to you, though, in particular, Mike, the one that he
I
brought
wonder
up.
if he's talking about this where they motioned him out and threw it to him to the left side, and he just ran right into his blocker. I don't know if it's that or if he's talking about actual inside zone, but I know what he's talking about. Like I saw it a couple times in the game. And I'm not going to speak to a player, but you're right. If you're seeing that out there on the field, mix it up. Add in some other players. You mentioned 2 running backs are on the roster. I think Amos, and then the other guy. I don't know his name off the top of my head. But why not give those guys a chance? It's obviously not. We're not doing much running the ball with who we have out there. Why not give it a shot? If you're playing the guy who was closing his eyes, lo and behold, get a new player out there. It's time. And you're right. Find playmakers and get them the ball, but not the way we're doing it by just putting them back at running back and handing it off to them inside zone. That's not how you give playmakers the ball.
Trying to get to everyone's comments tonight. I apologize. We're about, I think, like 40 minutes behind, and we had plenty tonight. So we appreciate everyone that has called in, sent a comment in. Intern Joe, I know you're down in Gainesville. I know you're still wearing your media mock, whatever the hell they make you wear on the sideline. Looks like you're in friggin' art class as a friggin' kindergartner. Just your thoughts tonight, seeing what you saw up close in Gainesville.
I mean, Mike, I saw what everyone else saw. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty at all. And didn't look great offensively. I thought, it wasn't anything Spencer did in particular. There really wasn't much he could do. He's running for his life, really, and I mean, couldn't really get the ground game or the run game really off and running. Quite literally, I think the defense, couldn't stop the run game. Like we talked about it so much leading up into this game, that the run game was going to be so hard to stop, and they just didn't. It poorly executed on defense, poorly executed on offense. And again, like I don't necessarily understand all of the flack that Spencer's catching, just because there was only so much he could do, and he's still the quarterback that had moved the game at Vanderbilt. He's still the high QBR kind of guy, and like Scar, you were talking about it. Like I agree fully. Like from my angle, like there wasn't anything Spencer could do, and you could see the frustration up close and personal. And again, I think the defense just needs to regroup going into Tennessee. Just poor performance stopping the run. And granted, Anthony Richardson is really, really hard to stop on the run. Like he's very talented, and I got to see it up close today. And yes, he is as good as billed to be. But this run game this Florida run game was just better today. The run scheme was just better. Found ways inside the tackles, outside of them. Just found the gaps, and defense wasn't really closing. Like we talked about it too, with having the amount of new guys in on defense. It's going to be tough to fit gaps and stuff, and it's not all on the defensive line. It's not all on the linebackers. It's not all on the secondary. It's kind of a group effort. And there's so many guys coming in and out. It's so hard to get a solid run game down pat, and it's really, really hard to be disciplined in the run game, especially like an atmosphere like the Swamp. Like this place was nuts, man. Absolutely bonkers. And to be honest, the Tom Petty thing was so cool, bro. But honestly, like it's just poor performance offensively and defensively. Some of the play calling definitely could have been better. Offensively, got to be able to run the football. We didn't necessarily see. And it also hurts not having CBS or Marshawn. Really saw the impact of that. And personally, I thought Marshawn would make the trip at least to get him dressed and at least do some window dressing there. But offensively, just got to execute when it comes down to it, and score fast, score first. After they scored, the second touchdown, the air was out of the sidelines. It just it felt like it was going one way just from the start. And we talked about the record when they start off and lead the first quarter. And so, it just, again, they didn't execute early on, and this game just kind of ran away from them, quite literally.
They didn't. But yeah, Mike.
I was gonna say, we're talking about being defeated, and I think I saw some comments on Twitter after the game. I think it was after the third turnover, starting the second half. They showed Spencer, they showed some other guys on a replay, and you're right. 4, 5, maybe 6, maybe even all of them. I don't know. They looked defeated. I saw in their eyes, just on the screen, a team that looked like they've given up on this game. And when you're building a culture, that's not good. Let's be real. The person playing the calls is the person. While yes, it is the player's fault for turning the ball over, and that should not happen. I think a lot of players are just being fed up with what's happening on offense. They couldn't get anything going, nothing creative on the offensive scheme from the offensive coordinator. And I just saw defeat in their eyes. And if that's any telltale sign of what's these next 2 weeks are going to be like when it comes to energy and just energy from the team going against Tennessee and Clemson, I'm worried.
Final thoughts, guys, on just where South Carolina is right now. 6-4. You got 2 games to go. Intern Joe, I'm going to give you the mic first. But just what you want to see from this team, because again, on paper, I can only imagine what Vegas with the spread is going to be like when that comes out against Tennessee, and then obviously against Clemson. Now, look, I know there's going to be some people on here that'll be like, well, Clemson's beatable. And I know I saw some of the comments. I understand Navy started to make a comeback on Notre Dame. Navy also runs a friggin' triple option attack, all right? I don't get to learn too much about a team when they go up against a triple option. I mean, that's just, again, you got to find ways to win. You should be able to beat that. But I do think Notre Dame's better than what we've seen throughout the course of the season. That's why, when they beat Clemson, some people start getting excited, like, oh, maybe South Carolina will beat Clemson. Maybe they will. Maybe they will. I'm just telling you, I don't see it right now. I said this at the beginning of the season, that the gap between South Carolina and Clemson, if you had to compare it for most of the last 5-6 years, kind of like 2 oceans. I do feel like that gap is smaller. The problem is I don't know how small that gap is. I think it's smaller. Is it a Mack truck size? Is it a wine glass? I don't know how small that gap is. I feel like it's shrinking. I do feel like Clemson's offense isn't where it's been the last couple of years. And we'll get into that in the next couple of weeks. But I bring all that up because, yeah, it's disappointing that you lost tonight, because when you talk about an opportunity standpoint, these next couple of weeks are not going to be easy. They're not going to be easy. I don't think a lot of people now, especially after the performance tonight, a lot of people are going to really look. I'm talking fans. I'm not talking about experts, all that kind of crap. We know what they're going to say. But I don't think even the optimistic fans are going to be looking at the Tennessee game next week saying that, you know what? Yeah, South Carolina might be able to beat Tennessee under the lights, this and that. I mean, Dana Bears hopped on with us today from Barstool. And unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to take any more calls. But I just don't see it. I don't see it. Mike, just your final thoughts, though.
Yeah, there's not. Honestly, I think it's time to give a different play caller an opportunity. While the plays aren't going to change, maybe how you call them and when you call them is going to change. Maybe the players are going to have more energy knowing that somebody else is given the opportunity to call plays going against 2 very tough opponents. We are depleted on defense, but you're right. I think I saw some comments talking about tackling. We need to find some guys who are going to just put their shoulder into the guy and tackle him. We cannot just let these guys get so much yak or yards after contact for running backs. It's happening all the time, and they're getting first downs instead of being put into second and longs or third and shorts or whatever the case may be. We need to tackle the play. We need to tackle better. But I think everyone knows offense right now is a struggle. One thing I want to point out is Gamecock fans are super loyal. They've been loyal through so many different seasons. But I think why we're seeing so much frustration and anger with Gamecock Nation, it's not that we lost. It's not that, because the loyalty has still been there, and loyalty is always going to be there. But when you're losing a 38-35 game compared to a 38-6, and your only touchdowns from a special teams, and you've been seeing that kind of lack of offense, I should say, all season long, I think the fans are sick of it. And I think The players are honestly sick of it. And you got, as a head coach, you got to recognize that. And while he may not say anything to the media and he may not say anything to the team, do it internally with the coaches or let them go. Maybe the administration of South Carolina needs to step up and say, hey, it's time as an organization. We need to take a step in a new direction. I don't know what the answer is, but this team needs a new energy and this offense needs a new spark. And if that's a new offense coordinator, so help me God, please let it be it, because I want to see this team succeed. And so does all of Gamecock Nation. But when you're not doing anything on offense, it's hard for fans to get behind what your vision as a head coach is.
Mm-hmm. Intern Joe has some final thoughts, so I'll let him have.
Yeah, I got you.
I'll have my final thoughts, and we'll wrap things up.
Yeah, absolutely. Just next week for Tennessee, I don't necessarily think it'll be as bad as people think. Obviously, we're going to get a lot of comparisons.
Why is that, Joe? Why is that?
It's just the way the sidelines felt today. It just this team was defeated, and I think Beamer's teams are really good at bouncing back. And I mean, yeah, they might lose the game, but I don't think it'll be that bad. Personally, just because this game the air was out of the sidelines the whole time. I mean, it's a bounce back game at home. You have a chance to go up against a team that's probably better than Clemson, if not, yeah. So it's a chance to kind of go back and last SEC game of the year, really kind of do something, put something on tape to kind of give Clemson something to look at. And I think this loss will. I mean, it's a kick in the jaw for sure. So I just foresee this team bouncing back in one way or another. Plus, I mean, having Marshawn back will definitely help. But that's all I got tonight, fellas.
I appreciate Intern Joe. It's like he's in a library right there. He's in the press room trying to keep quiet. I'm doing my best to be able to get everyone's comments here. I appreciate the patience, guys. It's seeing a lot of people asking for the number from a little bit earlier. We apologize that we weren't able to get to your calls tonight. But look, the bottom line is this. This performance tonight, it sucks. I mean, there's no other way to put it. There's sometimes in games that you lose, you're able to at least find something positive to talk about. There really wasn't a lot of positive things to talk about outside of maybe what Kai Kroger has done, not just tonight, throughout the course of the season. 5 for 5 now passing, 2 touchdown passes. What special teams did, block another kick, and then they made a great play on special teams after a looked like a botched snap on that field goal, Mike, by Florida in the second half. So I say those things, and you brought it up. The defense, they looked a little bit sharper in the second half towards the end of the game, but I think the frustrating part with this team is they've shown signs, and I know there's going to be people saying, well, they did this against only one winning team. I get that, okay? I understand that. But they've shown signs that they can be better than what they're showing right now, okay? Even the people that say, okay, this team sucks, be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. Do you think that they are as bad as what we saw tonight? I don't think they are. And shoot, this is the question that Beamer has to ask himself, and the coaches have to ask themselves. Why do they look the way they look tonight? And shoot, if I had the answer, if Scarnecchia had the answer to that, we'd be coaches and we'd be making a bunch of money. We'd be winning games like we're Nick Saban. So, not this year though. But I say all that because it's just the consistency. And I know that's a phrase that people are sick and tired of friggin' hearing. And it's not just football. I know you're tired of hearing that in basketball. I know you're tired of hearing that in baseball. And I wish there was a simpler answer or something that would just be able to say, hey, this is what makes sense. This is why it's not working, or why you had the type of performance tonight. I don't think they're as bad as what we saw tonight, Mike. Maybe I'm looking at the glass half full. Maybe I'm looking at the glass half full. I just feel like we've seen sparks from this team that have shown me, like, okay, this is what they're capable of doing. But I don't know why they cannot carry week to week that consistency and be able to carry that momentum. The only momentum they've really had this season from week to week is when they played Charlotte, and that went into SC State. Then they played Kentucky. Then they played Texas A&M. And even in those games, they're not trying to discredit them. We know the talent that Charlotte has. They fired their coach this year. I love Buddy Pugh. But the talent should be always better than SC State. I mean, that as much as I love covering SC State and what they mean to HBCUs, you should always be able to take care of the Bulldogs. Kentucky, yeah, they were banged up, but you know what? You found a way to beat them there. Then you were able to do something that the program's never done. And I don't care that A&M's going through one of their worst seasons in quite some time. We've seen some good things from this team, but it's that consistency. And I don't know why the hell it just hasn't been there from week to week, Mike.
Yeah, I don't really think there's a clear answer on why we're seeing what we're seeing with this team. But you're right. We're not as bad as this game has showed. We have a lot of players, and I think with the right offensive coordinator calling the plays at the helm, I think you would see a more competitive offense. And let's be real, while the defense did struggle in the first half of tackling, they were on the field for how long were they on the field the entire first half? Our offense was not on the field very long. 3 and outs, barely getting into Florida's territory. This team just needs to find identity. They need to find a solid play caller. An offensive mind changes a game. A good QB and an offensive mind completely can make a team or break a team. You look across the nation at good QBs who are coupled with a good offensive coordinator, and those teams are all probably ranked very few losses. It's just how it is. A good QB makes an average team seem so much better than what they probably are. And while I think Spencer can definitely play a lot better than what he is, we need to get a play caller in there who's going to call plays to his skills, which realistically, based on what I saw, he's a great deep ball thrower, and he plays well when it's getting the ball out quick and making those quick decisions. So we need a new coordinator, or at least somebody calling plays. And we just need to keep developing these players how we're developing. Our defense, I think we're starting to get some players in there, and they're buying into the system. While we did struggle, I think we are getting more players on that side of the ball. Our special teams is great.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm going to say is going forward is really, and I know I keep beating a dead horse for this, is we just need to find a play caller who's going to make this offense look competitive against any team that we face on this schedule, because that's right now what we're doing the most.
Well, guys, I appreciate you listening tonight. Michael Scarnecchia, we had a call on Audible, filling in tonight for Perry Orth. As always, intern Joe hopping on with us down in Gainesville. We appreciate everyone that called in the program. Sorry we weren't able to get to everyone tonight. And as Bird said, he respects the people who travel and pay hard-earned money to watch this product. Yeah. I mean, again, not saying that in pro markets that it's not the same, but I mean, a lot of you guys went to USC. A lot of you guys are from that state, and this is what you look forward to year round. That's not to say baseball is not important or basketball is not important, but for a lot of you, this is those 12 Saturdays in the fall are things that you guys look forward to. And with the excitement going back to even December when Spencer Rattler announced his commitment to South Carolina, I think for a lot of people, they wanted to see more. And it just hasn't happened. I think that's the frustrating part. Doing my best right now, as you can probably tell, trying to stretch this out so we can show every comment here. Probably not going to be able to do it because we had plenty of them tonight. But I just appreciate everyone that sent a message in. We have, goodness, I don't know if this game's over now. This was from 20 minutes ago. Mississippi State playing Georgia close. But that's pretty much all the comments that we're going to be able to show tonight. But bottom line, guys, appreciate you guys listening. Mike, appreciate you. We will have the GC Live Talking Tuesday nights on Tuesday. Not sure who we're going to get for a guest yet. I'm going to try to see what we can do if we can get a very special guest this week, because we need something to make people smile. So maybe that will be the week. And be on the lookout for Mixing a Water Monday as well. Everyone have a safe Saturday night and enjoy the rest of your weekend.